Everyone, I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular trustee meeting. Today is July the 9th, 2019, and it's approximately 5:30 p.m. And I'd like to begin first with the roll call. Mr. Burning?
Yes. Mr. Burning?
Present.
Mr. Honolaw?
Present.
Ms. McFarland?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
And if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to have our fire chief lead us.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm glad to see a nice group of people here this evening on a bright and sunny day. Too hot to work in the yard right now anyway, so what better place to be than in air conditioning? So I'd like to start first. We're going to begin first with the 2020 tax budget public hearing. I'd like to turn that over to you, Chris, if you can give us an update and the facts about our public hearing.
Will do. Thank you, Ms. McFarland. This evening, I would mention Kim Cox, our finance director, is here in the audience as well. So if there's any questions with what we go over, the process regarding the tax budget, she's the person to ask, and she was the person who created such a document. But as the board is aware, we do this every July. The tax budget is a required function of the township budgetary process. Every July, we look to review and adopt the tax budget by July 15th. It's due to the county auditor by July 19th. It is required per Ohio Revised Code 5705. And as a part of that statutorily required process, we must place a legal ad in the paper 10 days prior to this hearing to allow people to review the tax budget as proposed and presented, which we've done prior to tonight's hearing. But the tax budget, what it does, it identifies how much money or revenue is expected from local, federal, and state sources for the coming year. It also identifies the anticipated carryovers from the previous year into the subsequent year. And I guess more in particular, what it does is it, especially this tax budget this year, will show actual revenues and expenditures from 2017, actual revenues and expenditures from 18. It'll show the actuals for the first half of 19, the estimated for the second half of 19, and then the estimated for the subsequent year being 2020. What this does, and once it's given to the county auditor, it allows them to provide us with a certificate of resources, which really dictates what we can appropriate for our temporary and final appropriations in the coming year. So we've done that. It is presented. You have it as part of your packet, the tax budget. As the board is aware, and your philosophy instilled in us as staff to present to you is a conservative approach, meaning we never want to anticipate revenues being higher and expenditures being lower. We always show revenues on the low side, expenditures on the high side, so that we're never caught in a situation where we're going to be deficit spending, which we can't do by law anyway. But we always want to be conservative in our approach in terms of what we're showing from a budget projection standpoint, which is what we've done here this evening. So again, this is the initial step in the budgetary process, giving the county their ability to give us that certificate of resources for next year. And after tonight's public hearing, we do have a resolution on the agenda to adopt the tax budget, which we will certify to the county auditor by that deadline of the 15th. And we'll be on our way for our budget process for 2020. So unless there are any questions regarding the tax budget as presented or any questions regarding the process, I'd be happy to answer those, but that does conclude my report and regarding the public hearing. And then, Kim, I don't know if you want to add anything, if I missed anything regarding the process of the tax budget itself. Okay.
I have no further questions.
No, and I just want to commend Kim and you, Chris, for the work that you do. This is a normal process. This is something that we do on an annual basis, and I'm just glad that we're able to continue to stay on top of everything, and we can get those numbers in and get that certificate like we're supposed to have, so we can continue business as we've been doing. So I just want to applaud both of you for the great job you did, and everybody else and anybody else that helped you get to this part.
Very taxing.
Yeah.
Very taxing.
And as we have trends in revenue, we do adjust the tax budget and our approach every year. Kim and I usually meet once or twice before it's finalized to make sure that we're on the same page regarding what we're presenting. Take the Joint Economic Development Zone as an example, and that revenue. Now that we have 3 or 4 years of revenue, we can more accurately predict what we think the revenue will be in the coming year. So we adjust those revenue numbers based on the trend that we're seeing from previous years. And then anything that we may know coming up that would reduce or increase revenue, and same with expenditures. So our philosophy will change every year depending on sort of the external factors that influence it.
Great job. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No
Next,
questions.
we're going to follow our agenda and approval of minutes. We had a regular meeting on June the 11th, 2019, and a regular work session on June the 25th, 2019. Need a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And we wanted to get that kind of out of the way because we have a special recognition this evening for outstanding services. And those outstanding services are going to be...
Just as point, or before we go forward with that, probably should make sure no one in the audience wants to speak on the budget.
The tax budget.
Oh, I thought we did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
If anyone wants to,
Chris asked if anybody had
I thought he did.
questions and nobody.
I think I took it as meaning you guys. So
Oh.
make sure.
Oh, okay. When Chris gave us the 2020 tax budget public review, is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment or have any questions about that, the public hearing and the budget information that he shared? Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions about the budget hearing and the information that Chris shared with you? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask any questions regarding the budget hearing and the budget information that was shared earlier in our special hearing? And seeing none, I'd like us to move forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. I just want to make
You're
sure.
welcome.
I wasn't sure if it was clear. They may have understood it. I didn't. So
That's okay.
that's just a statutory requirement. So we want to make sure we've got it. So thank you for helping.
And I know there are a lot of people wondering, like, what is going on? We have the men and women in blue. So we have a special recognition of outstanding service this evening. And I'd like to turn it over to our police chief, Mr. Browder. Can
Thank you,
tell
Ms.
me?
McFarland. As the board's aware, back on June the 21st, after 9.5 years of service, which is an extraordinary amount of time for a police canine, after 9.5 years, Ranger has officially retired from duty. Just to give you a very small snapshot of some of the things that Ranger has done, there's so many numbers here that it's countless, the number of things that he's done. Dan, his handler, Dan Carter, and Ranger are no stranger to the canine law enforcement world, not known just here locally, regionally, but nationally as well. Just some of the things accomplishments Officer Carter and Ranger have done over 285 tracks. They've recovered 46 pounds of marijuana, 312 grams of cocaine, 164 grams of marijuana, 78 grams of methamphetamine, numerous drug paraphernalia arrests, and through the nearly 400 narcotics searches that the canine and Officer Carter did, they were able to seize nearly $56,000.
Oh my goodness.
So when you equate 9.5 years to expenses and what it costs to have a canine program, this extraordinary canine and his handler have paid for their own program. So that's extraordinary. Along with that, there's another side of law enforcement canine work that some see and some don't see, but Dan and Ranger did over 27 public demonstrations, and what that means is that they've touched the lives of thousands of children in and around Springfield Township. Always a big hit when the dogs come, and never a dull moment when Ranger comes to the scene. As the board's aware, our law enforcement work is extremely dangerous, but with a canine and his handler, it's inherently dangerous. They're chasing the worst of the worst. They're making apprehensions and arrests on people that have committed murders, carjackings, a variety of other extremely violent crimes. And I know the board's aware this is not our first visit from one of our canine officers, but we want to recognize Officer Carter and Ranger for, like I said, just an extraordinary career. We're so fortunate as an organization to have an outstanding canine program, like I said, that's known nationwide. Also with Officer Carter tonight, his fiancee Nicole is here. His son Ben and daughter Katie are with us also to enjoy this moment. Dan's made a lot of sacrifices, and obviously his family does that too when he chooses this type of work. So we'd like to recognize them as well. So Dan, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Police Department, we have a
You guys want to go down in front?
Yes.
got a few little things for you here.
Hot dogs.
This is true. Sorry.
Chief, did you want to read this? I think it would be fitting that our chief, Crowder, read this to Dan Ranger.
Okay, K-9 Ranger, in service 2010 to 2019. And it states, "Trust in me, my friend, for I am your comrade. I will protect you with my last breath. When all others have left you and the loneliness of the night closes in, I will be at your side. Together we will conquer all obstacles and search out those who might wish harm to others. Together you and I shall experience a bond only others like us will understand. And when our time together is done, and when you move on in this world, remember me with kind thoughts and tales. For a time we were unbeatable. Nothing passed among us undetected. If we should meet again on another street, I will gladly take up your fight. I am a police working in K-9, and together we are guardians of the night." Congratulations.
This isn't just about rain. There's a lot of people here that, we had the keys to the castle from day one.
And Dan, on behalf of the Springfield Township Police Association, we also have
That's
a ceremonial blanket for you. And also there's one over here for Ranger as well.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Did you get that, Chief?
I did it all last night.
Yeah, good luck.
Nice, dude.
How do you turn this thing on so it doesn't?
Kathleen,
Paper clip.
can you flip this for him? Somehow I got it flipped.
There, stay like that.
about anyone in this room and also my colleagues, but that just brings tears to my eyes. Yeah. It was very moving, and you know, when you see not only the dog and his trainer, but the family as well, and the sacrifices that they make, you know, for the township is just it's just unbelievable. So again, the wording on there, I don't know who created those, but it was awesome. So thank you for thanks to everything that all of our services, you know, provides for us here in Springfield Township. And I think this is just one of many of the great reasons why living in Springfield Township is a great place to live. So back to the agenda. Dan, fiscal officer, can you give us a finance report, please?
Hard act to follow, Gwen.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
For the month ending 6/30/2019, the township expenditures were $2,058,715.89, and receipts were $800,738.15. The ending cash balance of $19,538,010.54 includes obligations for expenditures, payroll, regular operating costs, ongoing capital projections, and investments. What I request is a motion to approve receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, updated and current revenue and reports for the period ending June 30th, 2019. Do I have a motion? Mark?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And I just want everyone to know that the financial reports are available for viewing at administrative offices here during business hours or on our website anytime. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. And as we move along with the agenda, and as you said, it is a hard act to continue following. Next on our agenda is the department action and discussion items. And I'd like to turn it over to our township administrator, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Following along with the services that our police department provides, I do have the contract before you for the Finneytown Local School District School Resource Officer Agreement. We have one officer that's assigned to Finneytown Local Schools as a resource officer, and the agreement is the same as in previous years. So I would just ask the board, and I apologize, I can't remember if it's something that, yeah, it's something that I signed, okay. Let's ask the board to authorize the administrator to sign the school resource officer agreement with Finneytown Local Schools.
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. And
Motion-
right, as I recall,
carries.
Finneytown is the only school district at this particular time where we have this opportunity in this service. Am I correct?
Correct. But it's the only school district currently that we have an agreement with for school resource officer.
Yes. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, I have in addition to the approved caterers list for the Grove Banquet Hall, the particular vendors are Divine Appetite, or Appetit, however you want to pronounce it, 8982 Cincinnati Columbus Road, Westchester, Ohio. And then La Rosa's Finneytown. And I guess I would ask for separate motions for each one of those because the La Rosa's Finneytown has a caveat to it. So I guess first ask for a motion to approve Divine Appetite to the approved caterers list.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Second motion I ask for is to approve La Rosa's Finneytown to the approved caterers list pending final submission of their application.
Okay. All right. Need a motion?
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.
Next on the agenda, I have the Township Facilities Maintenance Agreement. As the board is aware, we've went through a several month-long process of soliciting requests for proposals and requests for qualifications to various facility maintenance providers. We've been with VOX MCOR Services for, I guess, 9 years, for the better part of 9 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've had to part ways due to some issues that we've had administratively with the service they are providing. Going through the RFQ and the RFP process, TDG Facilities Services was actually the only provider that bid and provided proposals and qualifications. And it's one that we expected and we're hopeful that we would be able to work with anyway. So it worked out But in this particular case, I would just ask that the board authorize the township administrator to sign that facilities maintenance agreement with TDG Facility Services. And as the board is aware, by moving to this, in the program where we have the HVAC equipment and that maintenance service agreement with Bachman, everything else with TDG will save the township a significant amount of money moving forward from our previous VOX MCOR contract. So we think we'll get better service at a less cost. So
I think that's good that we are able to review and assess all of our agreements and see which ones are, still workable for us, or if there's areas that we can improve and grow. And VIAS has provided, has been with us from the beginning, and sometimes you have to make those changes, and so this seems like the appropriate time and to do that. So we need to get a motion for you to sign that.
correct.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Currently under construction is the Brentwood Village and Glen Forest road improvement projects. Those are both skip projects that were awarded last year, under construction this year. As a result, in meeting with that neighborhood, they approved an assessment component to pay for a portion of the 50% of that project we were responsible for, being the other half being provided for by the grant. As part of that statutorily required process, we have to have an assessment equalization hearing to ensure that the assessment amount is just and equitable, and we invite the individuals that are going to be assessed to that meeting and allow them to express any concerns or objections to the assessment amount. We've done this multiple times over the previous few years. So I would ask that the board pass a motion to set the time and date for those hearings for August 13th, which is prior to our next regular meeting, for 4:45 for the Brentwood Village and 5:15 for the Glen Forest.
Will that work with your schedule, Joe? How about you?
I'll make it work.
Okay, me too. 5:45 on
4:45 and
4:45 on August the 13th.
That works for me.
Okay.
4:45 and 5:15.
Yes.
And 5:15, two separate public hearings.
Okay. That'll work for us.
Ask for a motion.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So we'll send notification out to them regarding?
Yes. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be notified.
Okay, thanks.
Next on the agenda, this is an item that we had tabled at our previous meeting as we had some questions and there were some revisions that needed to be made. The Beech Grove Cemetery rules and regulations, as the board is aware, we are now maintaining that property as the owners of that cemetery, and as a result, we felt it was prudent to have some rules and regulations associated with the burial processes and the acquisition of burial plots by individuals for that particular piece of property. So you have before you the proposed Beech Grove Cemetery rules and regulations that Mike Gould, Laura Abrams, and Kathleen Kennedy all reviewed and has been vetted by them. And I don't know, Laura, if you want to mention anything regarding these, because I know some of them are statutorily required, right?
There was some updating we needed as a result of some changes in the statute. Joe, you mentioned at the last hearing some concern about the transfer language in the individual one.
Right.
I did send an email, I hope you all received it, but we did revise that. It used to be that you could more limit the transfer of a cemetery lot or a niche for the urns. It's not really the case you can do that anymore. But we also wanted to make clear that when people buy a lot or a niche or however you want to say it, that they're not actually buying that property. They're buying the burial rights and the urn placement rights. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear. There's also a provision in the law that we added to it where we can reclaim those lots if no one's buried in them for up to 50 years. And we allowed 40 years for the first notification and then allowed a 10-year renewal if somebody still wants to be buried there. The reason the law was changed for that is there's a lot of township cemeteries where they just have lots that they know were sold, but there's no one who will ever be buried in them because the family is now no longer reachable, their addresses are unknown, so there's these spaces where they cannot, anymore use those lots, and they have to stay that way forever. So the law was changed to allow for notification. There's hearing procedures. It's not that any township will walk in and take something someone purchased. There's a lot of procedures to go through that. But these regulations, we modified them to allow us to engage in that procedure if that happens.
Was the $15 fee for the transfer, is that a statutory thing?
It is not. You can establish any fee you want. That seems to be the standard fee people are using. It has to be a reasonable fee. I actually, when I looked at some of them, and Mike Gould may have seen some, I saw some as high as 50. But it's just to cover the paperwork and the time. That's really all.
I think they look very good. Commend everybody for their work on getting them in their current form.
And getting it transferred over all those years.
After all those years.
Yes.
And you know, I am so humbled as well as so proud of the work that since we have now taken full control of the cemetery, it took some time to get us there, and I'm also very impressed with the progressive movement that we're doing to right-side the whole process back up, and the families, I cannot tell you how many families have commented on feeling so much better that they know that we now are providing that care and maintenance of the cemetery, and even the neighbors across the road. I ran into a gentleman who lives across the street, and he said, it's just a miracle, the way that the work that we're doing to enhance the families and the lives of the individuals that are there. We've just done a great job. Mike, your department, I mean, you've had a little sacrifice. You walked into a hole, and you know, he would not, we had to force him practically to go take care of himself. His whole persona was on making sure that work got done. So we've all taken ownership to it, and the families really thank us for that, and they respect the township for what we've done as we've stepped in to preserve the integrity of their loved ones there. So just a great job, everybody.
And Gwen, I would just say, of all the things, I've been working for the township since 1993, and all of the creative things we've done to help the community, that probably was one of the most creative things we've done, because we had to get a statutory change, we had to, get the legislature to do all kinds of things, we had to deal with liens, we had to deal with the land bank. I mean, the amount of work to get that to where it should be, and the dedication to do that when this board didn't really initially have an obligation to do that, I think it really speaks volumes, and certainly what the service department has done. I actually unsolicited had like 5 people last week while I was working on this. I didn't say I was working on it, but they all came and said, that cemetery is in Springfield Township. It looks really great now.
Oh, wow.
And, people who remembered what it was. So
Yes.
I think people don't really realize, because this was, almost a 20-year battle? I mean,
It was.
This
It
thing was.
I mean, when you look back at the date and the time that we started.
When I filed the regulations we were doing in my file, I literally have 4 accordion files that say Beech Grove. I mean, it really is an amazing thing, so.
And I have to commend
echo
you
that.
as well for making sure that we stayed focused, because at times I was not.
You were
focused.
frustrated.
I was frustrated, and I said, we've got to do something now, and you just calmed me down so we could all move forward. So it was really a team effort, and one of my favorite sayings is teamwork makes a dream work, and that's what this was, I think. So thank you, everybody, for everything that we all did to make this happen. Thank you. So we've already had a motion, haven't we?
No.
No, not yet.
I move we adopt the Beech Grove Cemetery rules and regulations.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, I just have a few discussion items. The board is aware every year, a couple times a year, I let you know that we've disposed of some property that is no longer fit for public use and is rendered no value. So you have that list of that property that was disposed of before you. Next, I do have a personnel update. In the fire department, we had the promotion of Michael Stickney to a part-time medic firefighter. We had the promotion of Kevin Richards to captain within the fire department. And we had the promotion of Jonathan Busing as lieutenant within the fire department. We did receive the resignation of full-timer Joe Plackey. His resignation date is June 17th, 2019. In the police department, we had obviously the retirement of K-9 Officer Ranger, as we just had that presentation earlier. So I'm sure he'll enjoy his retirement.
Did he get a hot dog?
Oh,
So somebody kept asking for it. Did Browder?
hot dog, he needs a steak.
He's fed well. No worries.
Looking at the rest of the departmental activity reports and community intervention programs, the board has those before you. Unless there's any questions, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Next on our agenda are the resolutions. First resolution is number 63, 2019, declaring nuisances pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 505.87 at various listed properties within Springfield Township and authorizing statutory actions necessary to abate the nuisances. Need a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Okay, the next resolution is number 64, 2019, establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor, which was just shared with us earlier. This resolution was going to be there by our administrator. I need a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
The next resolution is number 65, 2019, adopting the 2020 tax budget. Need a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
The next resolution is number 66, 2019, declaring motor vehicles located on public or private property in Springfield Township, Hamilton County, Ohio, to be junk motor vehicles pursuant to Revised Code 505.173 and ordering the removal of such vehicles pursuant to Resolution number 80, 2012 and Revised Code 501.871. Need a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw.
Aye.
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Okay, those are the resolutions for right now, for this evening. We're going to move on with the agenda. Do you have any old business? Anyone?
I do not.
Any new business?
Not tonight.
I don't know if this is new. I think this is new. It looks like, want to congratulate our fire department. Looks like we have received Ohio Department of Public Safety Division of EMS grant request. Can you maybe go into that a little bit more? This seems fabulous. And how's that going to help the individuals that we're serving here in our township?
Each year, the Ohio Department of Public Safety Division of EMS, they grant awards for EMS training resources. We apply for it each year, and then we compete amongst 1,200 other fire departments for monies that are generated through actually citations by our law enforcement partners. Thank you very much. And then they give us an award. This year was just under $3,000, but it is will be used in our training division, and already we are planning on purchasing 3 CPR mannequins.
Oh, okay.
These mannequins now comply with American Heart Association standards, where you have to be able to measure the efficiency of your chest compressions. So it's not like in the old days you could just push on resuscitate. These are now high-tech mannequins now that actually measure your efficiency and your depth of compression and your rate and so on. And then they give you a readout.
Right, by the computer.
Yes, by computer. So they give you a readout, so the person working on that can then actually get a report card on how efficient and how well they were doing. So, but they're expensive. They're $1,000 a piece, and we plan on purchasing 3 of those, and those will be purchased within the next 90 days.
Fantastic. So do we have any for infants or children, or is that yet to come, or is there a need for that?
We have some currently, but those may be replaced next year.
Okay.
So Chief, do we have classes open to the general public on CPR or any of that?
We schedule them on an as-needed basis. We don't have any on a regular monthly basis, but we get contacted by doctors' offices. We do classes for coaches. We do classes for teachers, and we do classes for the general public if there's enough interest.
Joe, I think that's a great question, because it seems like recently there's been questions raised regarding do we provide that service. here, and I couldn't answer exactly, so I'm glad you brought that up.
It might be something where we like put out on the website or, you know, publicize that maybe twice a year we would have a proposed class, and then if we get enough people to sign up, you know, we would do it.
Hey, Joe, Kathleen, as you know, is involved in runs our Business Matters program, our Business Retention and Expansion program. And as we go out and talk to those businesses on those site visits, that's one of the things that we mention among the services that we offer is providing CPR to various staffs of businesses here in the township as well. So we get it out to our business community through our Business Matters visits, but it may not be a bad thing to get out in a more general sense as well.
I think it would be also excellent to look at, we do have physician offices, medical offices in our community, and they all have staff that provide services and have to be prepared in case of an emergency situation, you know, to give CPR. And I don't know what kind of systems they have, but I know that if there's an opportunity within the neighborhood and the service is provided by credentialed individuals, that would be a tool that they could use and help, so they don't have to go all the way back, let's say downtown to the major hospitals or something like that. So I just think that's something we should explore.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
I'll report back to you. Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have. Now we come to our agenda where we have an opportunity for client participation and citizens. I'm still in the medical field. Citizens participation. I was in meetings all day in the hospital, so I'm sorry. Citizens participation, and that gives a citizen an opportunity to come to speak with us and address us regarding any questions that they may have. And I would ask if there is anyone that would like to do that, that the audience abstain from any type of discussion so that we can hear the individual that's approaching us and asking questions, and everybody else can hear as well. So is there anyone at this time that would like to speak to the trustees or any of our service departments? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Vlasta Molak, 8987, Woodland Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45231. There was a wonderful article about our trustee, Gwen McFarlane, in the Cincinnati Enquirer, with a beautiful picture of you. And I congratulate you on your achievement, or maybe I should say the opposite, because now you are chief of the Democratic Party, which is a job for itself, and hopefully you will straighten them out. And then move on to Washington to straighten them out in Washington too. Anyway.
That's a big job, Basta.
It's a big job even here in the county. But I want to talk about local issues, because all politics is local, as we know. I moved to Finneytown in 1982, in April, and I've lived in the same house since then. I had 3 kids who went to the Finneytown school system, including to the Whitaker and Cottonwood, which was unfortunately demolished, and through junior and senior high schools. And they did very well. They're all grown up. I have 6 grandchildren from them. And so I have pretty much been aware of what's happening in our neighborhoods, although I've worked on a county level on hazard analysis, and I believe that because of that work, the county has become safer from the large tanks of chlorine that could have killed half of Cincinnati inhabitants. I worked as a scientist and engineer at U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Then I worked at National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. My field is environmental and occupational health risk analysis, although I have moved on to sustainability issues and energy efficiency, energy conservation. And in 1999, I was a congressional fellow for Denis Kucinich, a congressman, working on Kyoto Protocol and all the environmental issues that came across his desk. Subsequently, right now I'm preparing a course together with my former boss at US EPA, Dr. Mike Darson, for lawyers and judges called Law, Risk, and Life. And it deals with environmental laws and their implementation and risk analysis on which some of these laws were based. Because when I worked at US EPA, we have developed regulations that were connected with these different environmental laws in order to implement them. So from those regulations come out standards and these various actions that were taken by environmentalists and lawyers. So they need to know that. It will probably be offered in September, a trial run, and then we'll expand it depending on the feedback we get from the lawyers and judges for the needs. For the last 20 years, I've offered to the Finneytown school system to do an environmental audit of all their facilities and to see how we could decrease the utility bills, because the final judgment on the sustainability of any one building is your utility bills. So all these indexes that have been developed, like is this LEED thing, it's all phony. It doesn't mean anything. You just look at your utility bill, your water, your electricity, your garbage, whatever. And sustainability is if you can decrease them to minimum or zero if you live off the grid like I do for the last 10 years. Anyway, they didn't seem to be interested. And the last time I offered was with a relatively new superintendent at their last meeting of the Board of Education. Do you call them Board of Education? No, how do you
Board of Education.
Board of Education.
Yeah, Board of Education. And there was a strange response. And then I got a call that a week later that there is a meeting at which they'll be discussing demolishing all those buildings and building totally new facilities. Now, mind you, my house was built in 1956. The school buildings were built 2 or 3 years later, except for the Whitaker, which part of that building was built in 1935, but later on in the 60s they added other stuff, newer stuff. Cottonwood was demolished, which we don't understand. My neighbors who also sent their kids to Cottonwood, 2 of my kids went to Cottonwood. We didn't think that anything was wrong with that building, and I believe that it was a waste of resources to demolish that building. But now they want to demolish everything else, claiming that they're too old to be fixed and that it will be cheaper to demolish them and get all new buildings that will be environmentally efficient and sustainable as a way to attract more people to come to live in Finneytown. Now, I have done environmental audit from the outside, but I need to get my architect and civil engineer, structural engineer to do the inside to see what we could do with those buildings. But they claim that they've done it already and that they had published it on their website, which I had searched and I couldn't find anything. And they now want us, the citizens, to approve a tax increase, real estate tax increase, that would be about $300 per $100,000 property. Now that's about 10% of the tax. It means, you know, if your real estate tax increases by 10%, it's not a small issue, especially when they have not put convincing arguments for demolishing those buildings. When we bought our house in 1956 and we signed on the mortgage, which we paid off.
Hey, Vlasta, pardon you.
Yes.
As a point of a question, you do understand this board doesn't have authority over the Board of Education, correct?
The question is, are you going to allow them to put it on a ballot?
We don't control it.
We don't
We have
have
no
any
control over the Board of Education.
It's the Board of Education.
The
That's
school board
the school
decides
board.
what they are going to do, and we don't have any say in what they do or do not.
No, but where do they go to put it on a ballot?
Hamilton County.
Hamilton
County Board of
Board of
And
Election.
I have to speak
Yeah.
to them.
They're a separate taxing entity. They have full authority over their own taxing purposes. We have no control over them whatsoever.
And I would also just suggest too that, and I'm sure you've already done this, but it's just a suggestion that those questions that you've raised, that you attend the next Finneytown School Board meeting
I will.
and address it with the proper people.
Of the environmental audit and suggestions how we could make those buildings sustainable without the development
Yeah.
demolition.
The Board of Education and the Board of Elections is where you need to go.
Okay, the Hamilton County Board?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Vas. Anyone else? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address our township trustees or any of our service department personnel? Seeing none, I just want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and it was I think it was a great meeting, educational, and the tribute to our police officer, Dan, and the dog was just awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'd like to entertain a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the evening.